right, we're recording. Hello, Erin. Thank you very much for
Okay.
joining me.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Okay, very good. It's a great honor to have you on. I've been into human design for a while already, and I'm still very much a novice on the subject, but it's something that has caught my attention because of how many different systems it how many different systems it integrates and
Mhm.
and looks at to get different answers and different pointings to help out people in understanding where to go and what their path might be, and how to. I think one of the main things that I get from it is that it tells us how to interface with life.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that it's just often, I always say that human design isn't really about like changing who we are, it's just like giving ourselves permission to be who we've always been. So it's often kind of revealing all the stuff about ourselves that we already know and like really giving us the tools to step into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you like, we could go into a little bit, um, a few pointers as to the different types that consist or that conform the system of human design and what they're about.
Yeah. So, human design, for those new to it, is a system that's based on your exact time, date, and place of birth. And the idea is that it really gives you your energetic DNA and really helps you understand, basically, like I just said, how you're meant to operate, make decisions, communicate, work within teams, all the things. And so there are about 2 billion different configurations, but at the highest level, there are 5 different types. So manifesting generators, projectors, reflectors, and manifestors. So the majority of the population are manifesting generators and generators, which are the people that really like the energy and the life force to kind of just like make things happen. Like the people that are here to wake up in the morning with like a full tank of energy to use up their energy in super satisfying ways throughout the day, and then kind of like crash and wake up recharge. And the idea is with both of these types, the more they're really committing their energy to things that they enjoy, the more they create energy for everyone around them. So it's so of service to the world that they really honor their own desires and what they're really available for. The difference between the two is that manifesting generators often thrive when they have their energy in a lot of things at once. They're not really meant to do just one thing. They're kind of multi-passionate by nature, and they can move very fast and sometimes skip a few steps along the way, which is natural. And then generators are more here for mastery, of like mastering this thing, and then when it's time to kind of move on to the next. But both types, it's really all about magnetism. Their strategy is really about allowing things to come to them, not chasing after things, but kind of waiting for something to trigger a gut response before they engage. So those are those two. Then we have projectors. So what is your authority?
Splenic.
Splenic projector.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm,
So projectors are really here to kind of be the advisors, the leaders, the guides, the teachers, not really here to do all the doing. And so much of the gift of projectors is basically in the way that they see the world and really in their sensitivity to energy. And so it's really important for them to kind of like not get lost and trying to just like do and make things happen, but really just like honoring that, like, whatever they have the energy for, honoring the ebbs and flows of the energy. So leveraging the energy when it's there, resting when it's not forcing it, knowing that their gift is really in understanding and supporting and guiding the others. So whatever they can do to kind of hone and cultivate that gift. They tend to be very gifted at asking questions. They're not here to guide people by telling people what to do, but really just about asking the right questions. And our strategy as projectors is all about kind of waiting to be recognized and invited. So rather than like initiating things and trying to make things happen, it's waiting for a real sense of recognition and invitation before engaging. And that basically just means that whoever we're engaging with is like really ready for our energy and ready for our guidance and ready for whatever we have to share. And I think when I first discovered this, like, I felt like it was so passive. I was just like, how in the world do I build a company with that? And I think that I've learned that like so much of our work as projectors is about making ourselves visible, is about making ourselves available for invitations, like really letting people know that we exist. So before I go into the manifestor and reflector, you want to share a little bit about that for you and how that's really impacted your life, kind of knowing that?
Well, for some time it's been kind of, or at the start when I started understanding it, it was kind of like you said, this I'm still struggling a bit sometimes with the idea of it being an apparently passive role of waiting for the invitation, and I would be very interested to understand more this idea behind it that says that we should become masters of systems. And like, for example, I'm a musician and I'm also a sound healer, and I'm trying to to continue developing my abilities and getting more experience in those areas, so as to become a kind of like the human design says, I don't know the word exactly, a person of reference for that, or in a way like, so as to be uh, called because of my abilities into gaining new um, potential partners in business or in life in general. And something else that now escapes my mind, but I yeah, no, I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. So I think it is, as projectors, it really is about having the right support and knowing that we're not here to do it all on our own, and just like, again, not deriving your worth from like how much you're doing and how hard you're working, but like really just like trusting that your gift is a little bit different. So whether that's making music, whether it's making art, whether that's like guiding a team, whether that's studying human design, like just, starting to pay attention to kind of what you uniquely bring to the world and giving yourself permission to really hone that. Then we have manifestors, which are the ones that are really here to initiate and get things started. So these people are basically here to just like get the ball rolling, like spark the fire, like just get something off the ground, but not always here to do all the doing, like just to get the thing started. And so most important for manifestors is feeling a real sense of autonomy and freedom and control. They're really not here to be like told what to do or managed or guided in any way. Like they're very much here to do things like on their own terms and in their own way. So it can be a little bit challenging if they're working for a company and being told what to do. So like they're often thrive when they just like are given a domain. It's like, this is your domain, do what you please, let us know how it goes. Or if they're working for themselves and can really chart their own path, but freedom, autonomy, control, everything for them. And their strategy is all about initiating, so making the first move, but also about informing. So once they've really decided to do something, it's reflecting on all the people that decision is going to impact and making sure they let them know.
And I remembered what I wanted to
Oh
say,
yeah.
that when I started looking into human design and into my own profile, I saw
Yeah.
that most of the, or perhaps every one of the most important decisions and projects and situations in my life where I grew the most, and which made the path to where I'm at right now, especially in regarding music, all those things were generated or were started with an invitation from somebody. So like I played
Mm-hmm.
in different bands, and it was never that I started a band, but somebody asked me, "Hey, would you like to join?" Stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And
Yes.
even working right now with sound healing and meditations, it was actually through an invitation from my girlfriend that I started having the courage in a way to show myself and put myself out there. And I've been really blessed with all those invitations. And when I saw it in the projector profile, uh, I was surprised to look at my life and see, wow, it's actually been through invitations that I've always given those special steps forward, and I hadn't
Mm-hmm.
realized that before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody would assume that it's that way, that sometimes in life you move forward. You always think, oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's always me. I did this, I did that. Or even if it's an invitation, you always look at it like, oh, I accepted that invitation, so it was
Mm-hmm.
actually me. But it was not. It's like in I don't know how it is in the case of generators and manifestors and the others, how much invitations move their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's just we all have different strategies. So for them, it's about, allowing things to come to them. I think for us, like, even before I knew human design, invitations were still the guide. Like when I think about all the opportunities and things I engaged in, it was all from the sense of recognition. So I don't think it really hurts anyone to be invited in, but I think that as projectors, just knowing that like we just really do carry a different energy, and we all carry different energies, but like with ours in particular, like it can be a little bit intense if people aren't ready for it. And so the invitation is really just kind of um, the kind of affirmation and the validation that it is people are ready for it, and they do want your guidance, and they are ready for you, and they are ready for your music, and it just kind of allows us to be so much more successful.
And it's also important, at the idea of not just like a verbal invitation, but exactly like when you're trying to help somebody to feel that energetic opening from the other one, that they want to hear what you have to say.
Yes,
Mm.
100%. And then we have reflectors.
Reflect.
Yes. So reflectors are 1%, much more rare, and basically people that are really here to kind of be our collective mirrors. So these are people that are very sensitive to their physical environment, and they're just kind of always taking in everything in their space and mirroring it back. And so you really get a good sense of like how a community is doing, or a company or a team, just by how that person's showing up, because they're taking it all in and kind of mirroring it back and reflecting it back and letting us know how it's going. And so the most important thing reflectors can do is just choose to be in spaces that feel good to them. You know, they're so sensitive to their physical space. So making sure like their home feels good, their office feels good, like, the city they're in feels good. And also their identity is always changing and adapting and mutating. And that's part of their magic. And so part of their work is to not try to put themselves into one box or be just one thing, but basically like allow themselves to be all the things, like allow themselves to kind of wake up every day and be a little bit surprised by how they're feeling, and to like allow themselves to feel different around different people and in different environments. And, one other thing I'd share about reflectors is just like they tend to have this very just like powerful kind of objective perspective on things. So whenever I'm around a reflector, I'm literally like asking them questions all the time. Like, what do you think about this? And what do you see about this? Just because their perspective is so like non-judgmental and so to the point, and can be just like so extraordinarily useful.
Yeah, and they're also very few, so they have a very unique view of things. And I
Mm-hmm.
sometimes struggle with the idea as a projector of the when I have an idea or something that I want to communicate or share with others, how that works with the idea of waiting for the invitation. So, um, like I know generators, they have something that is kind of similar that sometimes confuses me. This wait for something to come to them, and in a way, waiting for an invitation is something similar, but it's like you don't always have to. It's like sometimes it feels like you're not waiting for an invitation because you have an initiative that you want to start. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. Tell me what you mean by that. I think when you have an initiative you want to start.
Right. You want to start something, but you're like thinking, okay, so what do I do? Do I start this and share it with somebody else and start the ball rolling, or should I just like continue improving myself and waiting for somebody to ask me if I have an idea and then share it maybe.
So I think what I would share about that is that like I really don't think that human design is like meant to hold us back in any way. So if you're like sitting on something that you think is amazing, and if you're like, I can't do that because I'm a projector, like that's not really how human design is meant to be used. I think that like the invitation is really around sharing your gifts with people. And so like maybe if you are going to start a company or move to a new city or study a new thing, like you don't need an invitation. But when it involves like working with someone, living with someone, like dating someone, that's where that invitation piece is so key. And I think you can also like, check in and just see if people are available for it. Like, even if I have feedback that I want to share with people, like instead of just sharing it outright, in which case like I might experience a little bit more resistance if they're not ready for it. I'll often like ask, like, I have like feedback I'd like to share. Like, are you open to hearing it? Like, at least giving them the chance to opt in creates like a different level of receptivity and like really ability to communicate. So, so I think that like I wouldn't let it hold you back in any way. But again, I would just make sure that like if you're going to share your gift or work with somebody in any way, that like they're really kind of receptive and ready for that too. And like if you're not sure, to ask them. You know what I mean?
Right. I see the idea of asking the other and in that way seeing if they're open to receive.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
just giving them a chance to opt in,
Mm. Yeah, because
you
you also
know?
said that we shouldn't be like imposing on others, but actually ask, like you said, with reflectors, that you would ask them, oh, how do you feel? What do you think about this? What do you think about that?
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's good for the people around projectors to ask them that too. Like asking us kind of open-ended questions, like asking projectors for guidance, like inviting them in, like recognizing them, like for their perspective, like such powerful tools for all projectors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For example, my girlfriend and I, we're both projectors, so sometimes we would have this question of, okay, how can somebody initiate something if we're both waiting for an invitation? But
Yeah.
but yeah, we shouldn't be holding back that our potential, but actually perhaps, as you said, asking and seeing, okay, would you be open to hear something about X, right? And in a way, we are giving them as projectors an invitation.
Yes. Yeah, and you guys can also invite each other. You know, I think that like it's just like again, the invitation doesn't always have to be like super formal. Like it could be really energetic of like, oh wow, I feel really recognized by this person. Like I'm gonna move towards it more, you know, or like I don't, so I'm gonna like step away. So I think that like continuing in the relationship dynamic to always just be like, do I still feel invited? Do I still feel recognized? And like keep moving towards it. I think that invitations can also sometimes come with an expiration date. And so if it does feel like something in your life is no longer working, whether it's like a relationship or a job or a partnership, it is always asking yourself the question, like, do I still feel invited in? Do I still feel recognized? You know, and just knowing that like the invitation sometimes needs to be renewed, or you know, maybe you need to have a conversation and see if the invitation is still there, or maybe it's like just not the right thing for you anymore. So I think that it's also good to remember that like it's not there forever, and it's good to kind of just keep checking in with it, because if you start to feel bitter or not recognized, like perhaps the dynamic has changed and it just requires a conversation.
Mm, yeah. And tell me, how did you get to human design?
So I got to human design not in a way that I could have predicted, but I don't think anyone really does. I met somebody at a party in New York in 2015, and he'd been studying human design for 10 years. And basically, so I mean, since I guess 2005. And so he sat next to me at this party and started to look at my human design and started like to just tell me all this stuff about myself that felt like, oh my God, that's me. That is so resonant. Like just freaking out, you know? And you know, I was just so intrigued. And like he also ended our conversation by being like, you know, I think that we're meant to work together. We've got so much synergy in our chart. And so we did end up working together, and he really kind of introduced me to all of it. And then I ended up going through some more traditional certifications just to kind of like really like supplement and ground my knowledge, and then have self-studied along the way. But I think that I'd always been into different personal development systems and modalities, and had also worked in a lot of startups and business. And I think that human design for me just felt like the bridge. It just felt like it was as like tactical as it was esoteric. Like it just brought all the magic together into one. And I just appreciated that I could walk into companies or walk into conversations with people and like be like, yeah, all I need is your birth information. But the information itself is so grounded and so tactical and so actionable that I just like fell in love with it.
Yeah, for
How
me,
long have you been? Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I'm curious for you.
I've been into it like close to a year. I'm just starting,
Cool.
and yeah, it also came. I think I was listening to a podcast and somebody mentioned it, and so I was like, and somebody mentioned it that said it was like similar to astrology, and I was
Yeah.
learning astrology also at the time. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'm interested. So I went, and I'm always looking. I'm very interested in the different things and the weird things
Of
and
course.
new things. So yeah, immediately I started looking at it and kind of intuitively started understanding many things and yeah, and seeing myself very much described in the information that I found, and started doing a few simple readings for friends and stuff like that, and yeah, and I
Yeah.
saw them reflected as well in those descriptions. It's
Yeah.
such an interesting system in how much it's very, I think you mentioned it a bit, like kind of scientific and like very
Yeah.
formal and very left brain masculine energy, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time it uses it remind me of, it uses I Ching,
Yeah.
astrology,
Yeah.
uh, and a couple of things.
I Ching, astrology, the chakra system, and the Kabbalah, and then quantum physics and genetics and biochemistry. So
It's
just like all the things.
amazing. And I remember um, before thinking about astrology, I would be like, I didn't understand it. It was like too much for me. So
Yeah.
I was always thinking, nah, that makes no sense. It could be like maybe have a little bit of an effect or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But then I started understanding astrology and kind of unlocking that language, that symbolic language. And then when I found human design, there was this kind of scientific way of explaining it about the neutrino,
Yeah.
stuff like that. I always thought before that explanation, I would imagine kind of some kind of an attractive force from the planets to our heart or something like that, kind of a string holding us together.
Yeah.
That's why your birth chart would have an effect and the date
Yeah.
transits. But then this idea of neutrinos is very similar, but it's also different, as in the planets are like shooting information at us.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Crazy, you know, and I think that like it just like it, and we're just impacted by it, you know what I mean? And I think what's magical about human design is that like yes, we have our imprint, but also like the way that we choose to express that, the way that we like live our lives, like we can, you know, that we don't know how that's gonna look. But again, like yeah, we are impacted. It is crazy, just like the mystical origins that like where we're born and when we're born and like the date we're born, like just like and what's going on with the planets and the neutrinos, like that really like creates such a blueprint for us. But like it is kind of this like hidden operating manual that I think once we really tune into it can just make our lives so much easier.
Mm. And earlier we were talking, or you asked me about my inner authority,
Yeah.
this splenic, and that is connected to the idea of the chakras in the body, which human design has 9, I think.
Hmm.
And what could you say a little bit about the inner authority, and in particular, if you want, about the splenic in my case?
So the authority is basically how we're meant to make decisions. So I guess I would recommend for everyone, if you're just like getting into human design, the type and the strategy and the authority is going to be the most important piece. So for projector, it would be your type is the projector. The strategy is around kind of waiting for that invitation and recognition. So none of us are really meant to make decisions from our minds. We're not ever like here to create like a pro con list and be like, this is what we're meant to do. So it's all kind of a more innate body knowing. So there are some people like me that are emotional, which basically means that clarity doesn't come in the moment, but it comes over time. So the best thing that I can do with decisions is sleep on things and give myself time to feel into things before I commit, which was hard for me to learn, but made such an impact. There's some people that are sacral. This is only possible for generators or manifesting generators. And they're basically designed to kind of trust their gut response in the moment. You know, it's so interesting because there's so much talk out there of like, follow your gut, listen to your gut. But like not all of us have a gut. I definitely don't. And so like this is the piece that's like so speaking to that people, to those people. Splenic is basically all around your intuition. So in human design, gut is different than the intuition. Gut is like a visceral feeling in your belly. It's like an expansion or a contraction. The spleen is this kind of quiet knowing. It's like a whisper that you hear. It's like tingles that you feel. It's just like this kind of innate knowing, and it is very spontaneous. So whereas like I'm emotional and like thrive when I sleep on things, for you, you actually thrive when you are impulsive and super spontaneous. So like the idea is that like your innate knowing comes and then disappears as quickly as it arrives. So your work is to kind of just like really tune into that innate knowing and then just be like courageous enough to act when it comes.
What
So
could
before I go into yeah, go ahead.
what could be a way of tuning into, of like recognizing when it's talking to you?
So, I mean, my biggest recommendation is that, like, of all the ways of making decisions in human design, this one is like the absolute quietest.
Mm.
It's just like, it really is a whisper. And so, any practices that you can find to just like get yourself quiet and create space to listen, like whether it's meditation, whether it's going on walks, whether it's sleeping in your own bedroom, whether it's taking space from other people, like baths, whatever it is, like anything you can do, just like get quiet within yourself and kind of like allow the insights to come. And I think that like, you know, it can show up in different ways for people. It can be this kind of just like thought that appears out of nowhere. It can be like a voice that they hear. But I think it's one of those things that it's not mental, where it wasn't like a thing that you were thinking about. It just is like this spontaneous kind of like recognition or realization that arrives, and kind of just like starting to just like get quiet enough that you hear it when it comes and you can kind of recognize it. And obviously the more you listen to it, the more quiet you create, like the louder and like stronger it becomes. Do you feel connected to yours?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, like sometimes I feel like I can't necessarily distinguish one thing from the mind mostly. One of the things that's always going on in me is the mind, and many times I try to in a way, I sometimes, if I think about it now, I sometimes can feel connected to it. In there's times when, but I don't know how to. It's very hard to explain this connection to this intuition or instinct, authority, because it's like sometimes I feel different. You know, there's days when when perhaps during the whole day, or perhaps during a particular moments when you have to make decisions, you feel different. I feel different, and when I have that particular sensation, sometimes it's kind of a body thing, or an inner calm, inner peace, or a calmer mind, and it like gives me some clarity in the situation I'm confronting, or the situation I'm in, and at those times it's like very clear for me, and simple, and it feels good to do what my intuition tells me. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like you take the decision, and
Mm-hmm.
you you're okay with it. There's no doubt. It's like you're flowing in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But other
Totally.
days it's very tough. It's like lots of mental noise, or I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%, and I think that it's just like, and it's practice that you start to like see how it feels to listen to it. But again, I think that like human design has really reminded me that like our minds are very powerful in terms of like offering inspiration for others and in terms of processing things and stimulating people. But like in terms of making decisions for ourselves and knowing what's right for us, like it's not really our mind, because like our minds can just convince us in or out of basically anything.
Yeah, since I was very young, I remember I always had this sensation of that I was very good at, like, not psychoanalyzing, but I had this kind of intuition of reading others, or like understanding the a little bit of the motivation behind their actions, or the psychology of others. But always at the same time, I had this same realization that it was so hard for me to read myself, and I
Mm,
think that's connected to what
totally.
you were saying.
Yeah, projectors are very natural at seeing people, but like a little bit less sometimes at seeing themselves, which again why the authority is just like the thing that you can rely on. So like yes, like we're so good at seeing others clearly, but if we kind of like rely on our own authority, then we know that that will kind of guide us into the correct decisions in the first place.
Yeah, because I think it's great how this ability that I saw described as projectors, being able to look at things from a higher perspective in a way, or from a bird's eye view, and we can like see a bigger see connections between things that perhaps others are more on the ground level, and they're not seeing those connections, and that's why when we are invited, we can we can kind of point people towards things that would be good for them. Do you think
Mm-hmm.
like that?
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I think that like again, that's the guidance piece. We just got to make sure that people are ready for that guidance.
yeah, I'm sometimes a little bit anxious to help, and anxious
Yeah.
in a way, anxious to help because of wanting to be recognized, perhaps.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a big thing to watch out for projectors, because there could be a tendency to like give too much because there is such a desire to be recognized, but like you've got to be like there's got to be like an exchange, whether that's like them paying you or asking for your guidance or giving you some like energy, whatever it is, like there's got to be an exchange. And so really to watch out as a projector to not just like over give or give too much in pursuit of recognition.
Yeah, you made me think in a way, in that thing that I do, that I tend to do sometimes. I'm kind of putting the what's the phrase, the carriage before the horses, or something
The
like
cart before the horse. Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like giving to receive the recognition, rather
totally.
than in a way wait, because I don't know if this is a projector thing, but I'm kind of an anxious, or not anxious necessarily, but I'm always looking forward, and so I want the recognition now. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
do this backward process to get the recognition, rather than wait for it.
100%.
Mm.
And it is trusting that, it's just like we can't rush it. I always say that we can't like seek out recognition. We can just like make ourselves visible, available for it. Like let people know that we exist, but not like chase after it.
So that's why
But so,
the
yeah, go ahead.
social media is, sorry to cut you off. That's why
Yeah,
this
you're good.
new time of social media has been such a great explosion of people doing different modalities, from astrology, tarot to human design and
Mm-hmm.
whatever else, because there's this way of putting yourself out there and
Yeah,
finding those people that might be interested in what you have to offer.
totally. It's
I
such a powerful tool to just like, oh, go ahead.
no, that I would say I cut you off a minute ago, so please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it is such a powerful tool to kind of make yourself visible. You know what I mean? It's just like letting people know that you exist. So again, like I just want to remind all projectors that again, like it's not meant to be a passive thing. You're not meant to sit on the couch and be like, when is the invitation coming? Like your job is really about making yourself visible and available for people to find you. And in whatever way resonates, like maybe Instagram is not your thing. Like it doesn't have to be. Like maybe it's just like sharing super authentically with like your friends. Like so many of my first clients were like my friends and the people that I like shared the same space with. And it was just like that kind of helped grow and like build the foundation for me. But it's just like let people know what you're doing, like get them excited, but not with this like super salesy thing, but more just like I'm super inspired by it.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Make sense? Yeah.
Yes, of course.
So then some of the other authorities, just so I don't leave them out, there's the ego people. The ego people, it's basically all around making decisions, whether or not they, you know, depending on whether or not they really have the willpower for something or the fortitude for something. So always kind of asking themselves, like, do I really have the willpower or the fortitude for this thing? And when their heart is in it, they can basically do anything. Then we have people that are self-projected. They need to kind of like listen to what they say and just talk things out, and kind of like their truth will literally just plop out of their mouth when they give themselves the space to just hear it. And their decision making is very connected to their identity. And then we have what we call mental projectors, which are they're basically all around being in the right environment for them, environment, and then kind of talking things out in those spaces. And then we have reflectors who are really kind of designed to give themselves a full lunar cycle, a full 30 days before they commit to a big decision. And the idea is that it's really healthy for them to kind of sample something from a lot of different options. Maybe they don't need the full 30 days, maybe they need a couple cycles of 30 days, but I think at the very least, like making sure they're not in environments or around people that are really hurrying them or like asking them to move at a pace that doesn't feel very natural to them.
Yeah, I'm really thankful that I'm not a reflector. I think that's kind of hard, but yeah, I mean, I look at it from my own perspective, but it's like every center is open in them, something like that, correct?
Every center, and they're so magical. You know, I think human design has taught me that there's like no good or bad. It's just like it's different. And I think that it's often so um relieving for reflectors to discover human design, just because like they perhaps haven't given themselves the permission to feel different, and human design just validates that. But I think that like it does feel, when that's not our experience, it's like, wow, that feels like a long time. But like every reflector I've talked to seems to have really like understand that and gets that. And so like I just think it's such a reminder that we all operate like so differently, and the magic is just really in tuning into it.
Yeah.
So those are the authorities.
Mm. Yeah, it's a great challenge, and also a great magic and a great uplifting experience to start putting into practice the basically the three main tips, right, of the
Totally,
type,
totally.
strategy, and the authority, because for me it was yeah, a before and after, in a way, like uh, it gave me a lot of clarity, and also joining it with a little bit of astrology and a little bit of tarot, it also helped me make several
Mm-hmm.
decisions that
Mm-hmm.
that moved me forward into along my path very
Mm-hmm.
very quickly when during the
Yes.
time that I
Mm-hmm. Totally.
you have a similar experience,
In what way?
like when you started integrating the concepts of human design,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
very basic ones at the start, you
Yeah.
like you, for me it felt like like a channel that I was meant to, or a road that I was meant to be going down, and
Yeah.
and like before I would be like walking all over the place, and suddenly you find the road that's perfect for you.
Yeah, I think that like, you know, there's so much information in human design, and it can feel like a little bit endless, and like in terms of the things that you can learn and the details that you can look at. But I think that like the simple stuff is really the most impactful. And I think that like if you really start to experiment with your type and your strategy and your authority, like all the other stuff is kind of just meant to happen. You know what I mean? And so like I definitely encourage you to like integrate new pieces when you're ready to, when you feel excited to, but like not forcing it. And like I do think that in some ways, I had been living like a projector, but in some ways living like a generator. But I do think human design just like really just dialed me in so quickly to my path and like how to operate in a way. Cause like I got invited to like studying human design. Like it wasn't even a thing that I was considering, but like the guy that I met was like, I want to build a business with you. I want to do this with you. And I'm like, what is going on? But like, I just think that now that I have a language, I can be so much more strategic about like continuing to stay aligned. And like, but yeah, I think it really does kind of like knock us right on to the right path. And so, I think human design might be challenging if people like aren't willing to make any changes. Like I think there's got to be a willingness to keep like growing and being open to evolving. But yeah, the simple stuff is always the best for sure.
Mm. Yeah, I think when the student is ready, the master appears. Mm.
Yes,
And
exactly.
Erin, everything we've been sharing so far, like you said, human design has a lot of information, and so to bring it a little bit more, perhaps to a kind of a more practical, a more practical way of looking at it. What could you say that human design has to offer us during times of crisis, during times of change, um, when, for example, what's going on right now in the world, that there's lots
Yeah.
of uncertainty, lots of um, from misinformation to lots of fear. um, I don't know, how do you look at it?
I think that it's like an especially powerful time to really ground into our design, because I just think that like when there's so much uncertainty both around us and ahead of us, I think like the most powerful thing we can do is like really ground into exactly who we are and how we're meant to make decisions, because I think that's like very empowering right now, because I think that like there's just so little that we can control. And I think what human design has taught me is that like our biggest work is to just like make one aligned decision at a time, and like trust that's going to take us all the way there. We're not really there to like here to like architect like a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. It's like I'm going to make one aligned courageous decision at a time. And so I think that like when there is so much uncertainty for so many of us, and with the future, I think that like just grounding into exactly who you are and making sure that you're really in alignment as an individual will make you available for the right path, will make you available for the right people, for the right opportunities.
And would you say people can can go towards that by starting to learn about their human design chart?
100%, learning like your type, your strategy, your authority. Like if you're a generator, it's like, okay, I've got a lot of like natural vitality and energy and life force, and my work is to do it on things that I like invested in things that I really enjoy. So like what are the things in my life that are lighting me up the most, and how can I like put my energy in those creative projects and know that's of service to everyone around me? How can I like remove my energy from all the commitments that I said yes to but don't actually want to do? Like how
Mm.
can I listen to my gut and let that be my guide even if I don't always know where it's going to take me? The gut is like, this job feels right or it doesn't, don't know why, I'll find out later, like, or projector, knowing that our energy operates in ebbs and flows. So how can you take rest right now? Like, like really rest when the energy's not there, leverage it when it is. Like for you, listening to your intuition, for me, taking my time with things, like knowing that our job is to make ourselves visible, but not like initiate things before people are ready. So I think there's just like often when we kind of like, again, those simple pieces, just like owning that I was a projector, owning that like human design was my thing that I wanted to do, and like making it my job to be visible, but also be so in integrity and aligned with the way that I made decisions. Like it all just kind of happens. So I think it's just a very powerful time to kind of like really tune into like those just like the most practical basic there. Again, there's so much more to the chart, but I think like those things can offer such a key right now.
And is there a particular connection that it has with astrology, as in um, a, a projector, depending on their astrological signs and charts, they would have some difference, some nuance?
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, like there's not a direct parallel between the two systems. So it's not a thing where it's like, okay, you're a projector and therefore like these are your planets in astrology and this is your sun sign and your moon sign. Like there's none of that. I mean, there's potentially, but none of it's been like proven or studied. And I think that like that's kind of the magic, because you can be so many different things, but like it all kind of resonates in its own way. The planets do play a role in human design too, and like often it even takes into account different calculations than astrology does. But like astrology does play a role, and you can see when you look at a human design chart, like that the planets are there for sure. That obviously like what is going on in the sky and in the world when we're born actually does have a tremendous impact.
Yeah, I know that in a way the position of the planets in the chart, they kind of define something of the I Ching part, like the lines or something like that. So I'm not very sure how to ask that question that I was trying to ask. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, you definitely, if you're a projector, it doesn't really matter whether you're, I don't know, an Aries or a whatever,
No.
or Libra. As far as your projector status, of course, everything can work together. And
Yeah.
I actually think that the different systems, knowing some of each one of them is really important, because your astrology chart, for example, gives you certain information, certain pointings, and looks at your life and at you from one perspective, whereas the human design looks at it from another and gives you different answers to
Hmm.
other questions that perhaps
Hmm.
an answer, and so forth with the different ones.
Hmm. Totally. Yeah. So I think they can all support each other for sure, but I don't think they're like clear parallels, and I think that's kind of the magic.
Yeah. And have you been lately, for example, me, I've been really tired, or not tired, but sleeping a lot. I don't know if you, being a projector, have you been feeling something similar?
I think that I haven't been sleeping. I think one thing is I have been sleeping like without an alarm. Work has been a little bit crazy, but I think that like not having an alarm when I wake up has been great. Like I think sleep is actually particularly important for projectors. Even sleeping in your own space, in your own bedroom, in your own energy can be really useful. So I think honoring that part of my design has been key. And I think just having this time where there is kind of this like collective pause for a lot of us, obviously not for so many who are on the front lines, but I think that that's been really nice to kind of just like not sleep with an alarm and kind of reconnect to that need for just rest, and like again leveraging the energy when it's there and really resting when it's not.
Mhm. Yeah, I've been feeling like perhaps the energy, because of the situation nowadays, perhaps the energy is a little bit strong or something. And I don't know if it could be perhaps because of my inner authority, that I'm perhaps a little bit more sensitive to it than other people, or that I need to rest a bit more. Uh, do you know if it's connected?
I think that there are different kinds of projectors. So like I'm an energy projector. So even though I'm a projector, I do have some of my energy centers defined. So do you have your ego defined or no?
I do
You know,
have
the ego is a little triangle.
some energy definition. Let me see if I can find it quick. Um, I
But
do. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, I do. There are different kinds of projectors. So if you have an energy center defined, so if you have your root center or your ego center or your emotional center, it does mean that there is energy 100%. It just like it does operate in ebbs and flows. I think also it's going to depend on the people that you're around. I think that like projectors, we really get energy from other people. So like if we're spending less time with people, if we're like in environments that aren't energizing us in the same way, we might feel kind of more of a need for rest. But I think that like again, I think for a projector, like the work is to just really honor that energy, like really like rather than feeling the need to like just like keep doing, it's like resting when you really feel like you need it, and then like when the energy's there, take advantage of it, make it happen, go for it.
Hmm. Yeah, in my case, I have the spleen defined, and the heart, also
Yeah. So you have an energy
throat,
center. Yeah.
the throat and the ajna.
Yeah, and so the ego, the heart center is like it is a very powerful energy, but it really does operate in the ebbs and flows. It's like really powerful to get things done, and then it is gone. You know what I mean? So I think that like if you're feeling like the time for you right now is to rest, then obviously just honor that as much as you
Yeah,
can.
and there's days when I'm like, okay, so today I'm waking up very early, and doing this and that, and like you said, lots of energy for like a burst,
Yeah.
and then it's like, well, okay, I'm done for today. Now I'm going to
Yeah.
just chill out and relax for the rest of the day.
Yes, 100%. So doing that as much as you can.
Yeah. Well,
Great.
Erin, I don't know if you would like to add something else in particular that for for our listeners about perhaps about
Yeah.
the current situation or.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like I don't know when this will air, but again, I just think that like I think when there like I said earlier, I think when there's just like uncertainty around us, I think like it's really just such a powerful time to reconnect to who we are. And I think that what human design has taught me is that it's really just again, it's not about changing who we are. It's not about giving people stuff they don't know. It's like all the stuff they do know and haven't necessarily allowed themselves to step into. So I would just encourage you to kind of like if you feel drawn to dig into it because often it just gives us so much permission to be exactly who we are. And again, I think like that can be like the actual most grounding thing in a time of uncertainty to kind of be able to ground into that and know what's true for us and let that be our guide.
Yeah, those are beautiful words. Really, many times we are looking for who we need to be on the looking outside for tips of how we need to be. So looking for
Totally.
recognition or acceptance or for stereotypes. And during this such uncertain time, this advice that you're giving is great to go
Yeah.
within and on the outside what we can find is tools that help us go within, but the answer
Yeah.
is always within.
Yes. 100%.
Okay, Erin,
Awesome.
it's been a really great pleasure getting to know you and talking a little bit about human design. I would love to do this some other time. Please um, give our audience a few what you call it, let our audience know where they can find you.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm Erin Claire Jones everywhere. So I share that on Instagram there. My website's erinclairejones.com. And if you want to get started, one of my offerings is the blueprint, which is a beautiful, just like 30-page PDF on your unique design. So that's a really good place to get started, kind of walking you through all the key pieces. I do individual sessions, I do partnership sessions, I do team sessions. And then I also do a 3-hour workshop called Flow, which is also really fun to kind of dive into the depths of human design. But I always recommend the blueprint as a good place to start.
And you're doing that flow. It's well, not nowadays perhaps, but is it generally in person?
It's generally in person, but I've been doing it online right now. So
Mm.
I'll probably keep doing it online because it's nice to be able to work with people from everywhere, but it's always a treat when I get to do it in person.
How has it been working online and that shift?
I mean, most of my work is online. I do in-person sessions and I do the in-person workshops, but like most is from my living room. It's only when I'm kind of traveling and going to places that I really like prioritize the in-person stuff. And like, I do some in New York for sure, but so it's not that different. I do miss obviously like hugging people and touching people and, like the talks are very different. Like I have a big talk after this and like, it's just a different thing giving a talk over Zoom, like being able to be in other people's energy is obviously so much more fun.
Yeah. Well, what I can tell you is that during this conversation, I could definitely feel your energy, and it's a very loving and caring energy. So I really
Thank you.
appreciate you being here and taking the opportunity to speak with me. So
Of course.
well, it's been really great, and
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to talking again some other time with you.
Sounds good. Beautiful. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
You too.
Bye.
Much luck in your talk later. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes,
Enjoy.
sounds good. Bye.
Bye.